Good morning. My name is Uche Bean. I serve as Deputy Director for the Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity for the Mayor's Office for the City of Birmingham. To begin our program, we have our Senior Director, Denise Gilmore, over the Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome. I am so excited, as I'm sure you are, to be here in this space this morning. Especially excited to welcome you to this major milestone in the substantial completion of the A.G. Gaston Motel. And this has been a long journey. And I first want to just acknowledge those who helped create the National Monument. And so we have partners in the National Park Service, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and of course our Congressman Terry Sewell. It would have been impossible without her. And then of course the Bell administration. Thank you so much, Mayor Bell. And then and of course President Barack Obama, who created it. We wouldn't have it without him. And all of the local stakeholders who did all those National Park Service meetings so that this could happen. And so now the baton has been passed to the next generation of preservationists to help continue their work. And so the restoration journey began in 2019. And we have now reached this day where we can celebrate the preservation of the A.G. Gaston Motel. This is indeed a day of celebration, and after the ribbon cutting, you're also invited to have a sneak preview of the exhibit on the life and legacy of Dr. A.G. Gaston, followed by two panels, one looking back, memories of Dr. Gaston, and looking ahead, the future of the motel. So you know, you all, it takes leadership to pull something like this out. Not just leadership, but outstanding leadership. Someone who not only knows history, but honors history with an unwavering commitment to preserve these historic sites and stories that tells the legacy of Birmingham's history. And so we are extremely fortunate to have that leader, a champion for preservation in Birmingham. Help me welcome Mayor Randall Woodfin.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Good morning. There's a lot of smiling faces out here. Let me do this, if it's okay with y'all. Mayor Richard Arrington and Mayor Bell, please come on up and flank me as I... Y'all know I have a high appreciation for these gentlemen to my left and right. Mayor Kincaid could not be with us this morning. I want to pick up where Denise Gilmore left off by thanking the Obama administration as well as Congresswoman Terry Sewell. And we have a special guest with us today. Everybody give it up for Secretary Mayor Pete. Also want to acknowledge my colleagues, Madam President, Wardine Alexander of the City Council, and all the City Councilors that are present. Now, many of you all have heard the phrase, "We are our ancestors' wildest dreams." To stand here before you today in celebration and commemoration of the restoration of this historic landmark, those words really ring true this morning. The work done by our staff in collaboration with our partners and in support of this city would make our ancestors very, very super proud this morning. This motel symbolizes black enterprise in our city, black solidarity, black willpower and organization, and black victory in the face of social injustice that stood, unfortunately, as the front and face of this city for far too many years. The A.G. Gaston Motel represents the soul of this city, a soul dedicated to freedom for all, no matter race, gender, creed, sexuality, or nationality. I'd like to personally thank Mayor Bell for paving the way for this very important project. And I also like to thank the Historical Preservation Authority, the National Park Service, the Division of Capital Projects led by Denise Bell, and the Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity led by Denise Gilmore for bringing this vision to life. Reflect, restore, renew. Those have been our guiding principles as we've journeyed to restore what our forefathers, as well as our foremothers, built for us in this hollow ground we all sit and standing on right now. Thank you as we continue to move forward on A.G. Gaston's vision of philanthropy and entrepreneurship. And at this time, I would like to call up Congresswoman Terry Saul, representative of the 7th Congressional District of the state of Alabama.
What a great and historic picture that was. We talk about passing the torch, but it's so important that we acknowledge from whence we come and where we want to go. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It is a wonderful morning in Birmingham. What a glorious day to not only have a ribbon cutting right here at A.G. Gaston Hotel, but also an opportunity for us to welcome the 19th Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, to the city of Birmingham. As a representative of Alabama's 7th Congressional District, I have the great honor of not only representing the amazing people of Alabama's 7th Congressional District today, but I also have the esteemed responsibility of making sure that we protect the legacy that is Alabama's 7th Congressional District. It includes not only the amazing city of Birmingham, but Montgomery and Selma and Marion, and so much of the civil rights history. As the mayor said, we have so many people to thank for the opportunity for Birmingham to have a civil rights national monument. Definitely President Obama, obviously all of the political leadership, but I want to give a special shout out to the National Park Service. I know that Lance will be coming up here soon to thank them. They not only have made it happen here, but they've made it happen across Alabama. I see Lee Centel here from the Department of Tourism for the state of Alabama. Lee, wave your hand. I know that you have been instrumental in making sure that the state resources get here as well. So here in Alabama's 7th Congressional District, of course, we have in Selma the history of foot soldiers like John Lewis and others marching to make sure that all of us have the equal right to vote. We also have in Montgomery the black women who really established the political council there that's really led to the desegregation of the buses and the bus boycott. But right here in Birmingham, Alabama, we have a trifecta of amazing things. We not only have this A.G. Gaston Motel, but we also have 16th Street Baptist Church, which is so close. We have Lynn Park, which is so close. We have the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute that's right here, all of which make up, along with Bethel Baptist Church, the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument. It would not have been possible had not all of the efforts from the city, the state, and of course local government to make this a reality. You know, when I think about our promise, the promise of historic preservation, it is the promise that we know from whence we come and on whose shoulders we stand. But it also is important that we pay it forward. And that's exactly what we're going to do right here on this site when we not only renovate the coffee shop and the dining room, but we also renovate the war room where we know Martin Luther King and so many of our activists really was the brainchild. They developed that strategy of Project C right here on this site. It's so important that we not only preserve these sites, but we remember, reflect, as the mayor said, but we also come and be renewed in a space like this. Renewed and rededicate ourselves to the premise for which they all fought, which is for this country to live up to its highest ideals of equality and justice for all. It's going to take all of us to do that, and we will begin by today celebrating the ribbon cutting right here at A.G. Gaston Motel. With that, I'd like to bring up the 19th Secretary of Transportation. We also call him Mayor Pete. I will now say Secretary Pete will come up. He is not only the 19th Secretary of Transportation, he's the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He also was a naval officer for more than 7 years, served in Afghanistan, came home to his beloved city of South Bend, and made a difference, not only in South Bend, but blazing the trail for so many to follow. It is an honor for you to be here to represent this administration and what this administration is doing to play forward this amazing legacy. Please help me in welcoming to Birmingham Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg.
Good morning, and thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you, Representative, for your leadership, for your partnership on issue after issue, and particularly, of course, as Secretary of Transportation, I'm so thankful for your hand in shaping the generational investment in infrastructure that is the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's going to make a big difference here in this district and everywhere in America, and we thank you for your hand in that. Mayor, it's an honor to be with you. As you said, I always feel like a mayor, even in wearing this new hat. Once a mayor, always a mayor. And as you know, there are few things a mayor loves more than a ribbon cutting or a celebration of completing some work. And I'm so glad to see how you have acknowledged. Every mayor, of course, gets to cut the ribbon on some of the things that their predecessor launched into motion, and then does the same with their successor in mind. So glad to see mayors you recognized and part of this program as well. I want to recognize Denise Gilmore, Senior Director of the Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity for the city. Every mayor knows how much you count on your leaders, and all of the city staff and city leadership who are part of this. And Lance Haddon with the National Park Service, who we'll hear from in a moment. Most of all, I just want to say, by way of opening, that I'm conscious that we are on hallowed ground. That this very space where we are standing now is so important in Black history, in American history, and in a fashion of history that reminds us how important the ability to move around, a motel, a refuge for travelers, how much that ability to move around is related to justice and prosperity, which of course is why we are paying so much attention to justice, to equity, to fairness in the conduct of our transportation policy. This historic place reminds us how the physical movement of people and the social movement toward progress have always been so connected. After all, it was bus boycotts, among other things, an effort to have equal and dignified access to public transportation that was among the seminal threads of the civil rights movement itself. And in the time around those boycotts, there was another affront to justice, which was the danger and indignity that Black people faced when driving. Cars were a refuge for those who already faced segregation or indignity on buses and trains, only for there to be a catch. In fact, from that jail cell in Birmingham, in that extraordinary document, that letter from Birmingham jail that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, among other things he pointed to, he described the experience. In his words, quote, "When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you." But there were exceptions, like A.G. Gaston, a brave, courageous, innovative business leader whose Gaston Motel became a haven for Black travelers and the site of some of the most important civil rights planning and work in U.S. history. That legacy, those memories of A.G. Gaston and Dr. King and Reverend Shuttlesworth, the examples of all of those who hallowed that ground with the work that was planned from Room 30, the War Room, which will one day be accessible for visitors from far and wide, We'll call everyone who sees these exhibits, all of us who are here today, and anybody with a hand on any form of decision making, anyone in a position of influence, certainly in my line of work, to examine how we are making ourselves useful to the cause of racial justice and fairness and equity. I will say right now, some would rather ignore our past than come to terms with it in the service of a better future. As if divisions from the past that we live with today could be wished away by just not talking about them, not acknowledging them. But of course, the promise of our future depends on our relationship to the past. National parks are not just of antiquarian interest, they are urgently connecting us to the future that we're all striving toward. Because this monument will now demand an answer for every child passing by who sees the distinct design of this property and asks, what is that? And finds out. One thing that's been on our mind quite a bit in the Department of Transportation is how highways and rail lines, which enabled welcome mobility for black families in many ways, at the same time were often built straight through the heart of black communities, further dividing cities and leaving a legacy that still affects economic and opportunity and health outcomes today. And that is the other occasion that I have to be in Birmingham today. Later on, we will be announcing a first ever dedicated federal initiative to help reconnect communities that have been divided by the infrastructure decisions of the past. It is long past time to recognize that if taxpayer dollars serve to divide, taxpayer dollars must be used to reconnect, and that's what we're going to do with this initiative. And we will be announcing this alongside the Birmingham Express Bus Rapid Transit Project, which is an example of the kind of progress that is deeply important for connecting people to opportunity and prosperity, and we're very proud to be on hand for that. What lasts even longer than physical infrastructure is memory. In Birmingham, you are showing the nation what it means to preserve memory, to learn from it, to live with it, and to use it to build something better going forward. It was Reverend Shuttlesworth who famously said, as Birmingham goes, so goes the nation. And I'm very inspired and encouraged, holding that in mind, by what I'm seeing right here in Birmingham. So thank you again so much for having me. Congratulations on this extraordinary achievement and this terrific work. And with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Lance Haddon, Acting Regional Director for the Southeast for the National Park Service. Lance.
Good morning. On behalf of the National Park Service, I'm honored to join you, Denise Gilmore, Councilor Quinn, Representative Terry Sewell, Mayor Randall Woodfin, and Secretary Pete Buttigieg, as we celebrate this grand occasion. Today we celebrate the completion, the substantial completion of renovations to the A.G. Gaston Motel. I congratulate the City of Birmingham for their steadfast and hard work, their dedication to get this project done. I also want to acknowledge the employees of the National Park Service, those who work in our regional office, and those who have supported this project here from the City of Birmingham for their dedication and hard work. As Secretary Buttigieg indicated, where we stand is hallowed ground, made so by the suffering and the courage of Birmingham residents that in 1963 gathered here to challenge racial segregation. I am inspired by the example of their bravery and disturbed by the ferocious violence used to suppress them. Secretary Deb Haaland, National Park Service Director Chuck Sams, and I are proud stewards of their legacy and your history. Established in 2017, the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument preserves historic buildings and shares all the stories of the places and people associated with racial desegregation in Birmingham. The National Monument encompasses 4 downtown city blocks. It includes this location, the A.G. Gaston Motel, the 16th Street Baptist Church, Kelly Ingram Park, the Masonic Temple building, as well as the historic Bethel Baptist Church and St. Paul United Methodist Church. What happened at these places propelled human and civil rights to the forefront of the American conscience. What happened here is more than history. It represents a national sacrifice for the cause of equality. It is the lived experience of Birmingham residents. Since 2017, the National Park Service has granted a combined $4 million to the preservation of the 16th Street Baptist Church, historic Bethel Baptist Church, as well as St. Paul's United Methodist Church through our African American Civil Rights Grants Program. Together, this morning, we stand in support of the A.G. Gaston Motel, another anchor of this national monument. This was the headquarters for the desegregation campaign. This motel was a safe space for African Americans. From Room 30, also known as the War Room, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Ralph Abernathy, and Fred Shuttlesworth and others gathered. In other rooms, the weary rested their heads. And daily here in this courtyard, press conferences announced the ambitions of the nonviolent protesters. The hotel bustled with life and activity. And just as it does today, soon it will again. Our ability to tell the story of the Gaston Motel is due in large part with our partnership with the City of Birmingham. And we again thank Mayor Woodfin for his leadership. We celebrate you and we congratulate you on your success. We are committed to our partnership as we endeavor to rehabilitate the interior spaces of this historic motel. The 2023 President's budget includes a request of $5.6 million to design and restore the interior motel spaces, which will complete the final stage of this project. Now, in a couple days, after we celebrate Independence Day, we will join this community in supporting the 2022 World Games here in Birmingham. 20 additional park rangers will welcome visitors and residents to the National Monument. Children will enjoy our new Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument Junior Ranger book, where they will learn about this important history. With your support, the A.G. Gaston Motel and the entirety of the National Monument will stand as treasured points of reflection and commemoration for generations to come. I want to introduce now Councilman O'Quinn.
Good morning. I'm Darrell O'Quinn. I am the City Council representative for District 5. I want to begin my remarks this morning by acknowledging the true heroes that are amongst us, and that is all of the civil rights foot soldiers who, as children, led the marches and endured the hardship of being jailed. Thank you so much for your sacrifice and for leading what was one of the critical pieces of the entire civil rights struggle. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge, as Congresswoman Terry Sewell mentioned, I am the fortunate benefactor of being passed the torch. Thank you, Mayor Arrington, Mayor Bell, Mayor Kincaid, who couldn't be with us. Along with those mayors, there were councilmen who stood by those mayors and shared in the vision. I want to acknowledge my fellow council colleagues, President Wardeen Alexander, Councilor Abbott, Councilor Woods in the back there, but I also want to acknowledge all of the council persons who have come before us and shared in this vision. I see Jay Roberson back there in the background. Thank you. So thank you to Mayor Woodfin for also picking up this torch and leading us forward. Denise, thank you so much. You've been at the center of it all and led us over the finish line. We need to acknowledge that the A.G. Gaston, who created much of what is around us, even the building across the street, it is his vision that we share in today and celebrate his leadership. And with that, I want to hand it back over to Denise Gilmore. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to take a few minutes to just do some acknowledgments for those who touched this project and actually were instrumental in making this happen. I want to again express my thanks to Mayor Woodfin. And you know how I feel about your commitment to this preservation work, so thank you so much. The Historical Preservation Authority, under the leadership of Nathaniel Bagley, wave your hand, Nate, Letha Dees, and Maury Shevin, thank you all so much. They have stewarded this project, and so they're the ones that voted yes or no and changed things and allowed us to do this. So it's very important that we acknowledge. Thank you so much for your work. And of course, the Mellon Foundation, who awarded $1.1 million so that, absolutely, so that we could have a permanent exhibit to Dr. Gaston, and of course the restored coffee shop. So we are very grateful to the Mellon Foundation. And of course, we've all talked about the work. I hope you saw the before and after poster as you came in. We owe a debt of gratitude to the A.G. Gaston Construction Company, a legacy company of Dr. Gaston. Under the leadership of Brian Hamilton, Fred Keith, and we had outstanding project managers, Rogers Hunt, Ken Jefferson, and David Henderson, and thank you to all the subcontractors that we couldn't even name, but thank you so much. To Lord Egg Sargent, our historic preservation architects, who made sure that all the preservation was done in keeping with the Secretary's standards for preservation. So we thank Jack Pyburn and David Steele. I thank you, Jack and David, for your work. The exhibit was done by JB Designs and curated by Amber Mitchell, but we have to think, in order to have an exhibit, we have to actually have artifacts. And so I want to acknowledge first the Gaston family. Thank you all. Please just stand up quickly if you can. Y'all, we are so honored that we have the Gaston family in our midst and generously contributed items for the exhibit. The A.G. Gaston Boys and Girls Club, under the leadership of Bob Dickerson. Bob. And if you haven't noticed these young people, this is Dr. Gaston's legacy from the A.G. Gaston Boys and Girls Club. that still today functions. Roderick Royal, who also attended the Boys and Girls Club and contributed artifacts. Roderick, I'm not, there you are. Thank you so much. Thank you. And the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. What can I say? How could we do this without the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute? And then I'm just going to pause for a moment, because many of you had an opportunity to enjoy some coffee or tea or pastry while we waited. Let's thank Starbucks, Jessica Way out of the regional office in Florida, and then our Stephen Page, the regional director, and our local Birmingham community store provided the refreshments for you today. Thank you, Starbucks. And next, I want to acknowledge our City of Birmingham staff. Denise Bell, who just left so that she can be ready. Oh, I thought you cut out on me. She's getting ready for the rest of the day with Secretary Pete and the transportation. So she and Greg Mathern, project manager, y'all, again, good, excellent leadership, and I can only thank the mayor again for choosing such excellent leaders to help guide this. The Office of the City Attorney, now you know we can't do anything without an attorney. James Stanley, thank you so much. He changed those documents 100 times. Thank you, Jim, for that. Our executive leaders, Ed Fields and Melissa Smiley. There you are. Thank you, Chief. You know how much I appreciate, and Chief Smiley, Chief Fields, just their love and passion for this project. And it's always a pleasure to work with people who have the same passion that you do for the work. And of course, our Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity team. They've been running around all morning. Uche, Josh, Aquila, Shane, raise your hands. Thank you so much. And lastly, of course, I want to say again, the collaboration that we have had with the National Park Service under the leadership of Chris Butcher, the superintendent of the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument. Thank you, Chris. It was so refreshing to have a permanent superintendent named for the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument. And well, of course, you know that our guiding star, our treasure, Odessa Woolfolk. We couldn't have done it. She made sure, she said, now Denise, you're going to make sure there's a permanent exhibit for Dr. Gaston, right? We'll do that. We're going to do it. And then, of course, as you already heard, the other sites within the National Monument, it has been just a delight to work in partnership with 16th Street and St. Paul and Bethel and the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute and Urban Impact in the 4th Avenue Business District. And of course, all of you who are here today, for your continued encouragement. Every time we made another announcement and you all said, but when? But when? And so thank you for your steadfast just devotion and encouragement and well wishes for this. And so I now invite, and I see Priscilla. Oh my gosh, Priscilla. How could I leave Priscilla? Priscilla Cooper, who leads the consortium of historic sites for Alabama. Thank you, Priscilla, again. The beneficiary of work that others did before we got to this place. Thank you. And so I now invite Brent Leggs, the Executive Director and Senior Vice President of the African American. Oh, you got your name tag. That way we all knew who he was. Brent is the Executive Director and Senior Vice President of the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. He is leading preservation of Black historic sites nationally. And we will hear some closing thoughts from Brent after which we will have the ribbon cutting. Thank you so much.
Birmingham, you did it. What a beautiful, beautiful day. Thank you, Denise, for your partnership and leadership over the years to ensure the A.G. Gaston Motel is protected and restored. Let's give it up for Denise Gilmore. As Executive Director of the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, which is a program of the National Trust for Historic Preservation, I lead efforts to preserve cultural landscapes and historic buildings that showcase the richness and complexity of the Black American experience. Through preservation practice, our work is to build a true national identity that reflects America's diversity. I'm honored to stand before you today as a partner to the City of Birmingham and the National Park Service and its most valued leaders, Congresswoman Terry Saul, Mayor Randall Woodfin, Mayor William Bell, and the grassroots preservationists to further cement Birmingham's contributions to American civil rights history. Since 2014, the National Trust for Historic Preservation has worked diligently to call national attention to the preservation needs of the A.G. Gaston Motel. We listed the motel on our 2015 list of America's 11 most endangered historic places list. We added the motel to our revolving portfolio of national treasures, and we advocated for the passage of the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument and more. Because in 1963, armed only with the truth and their fearless resolve in the spiritual battle against immorality, Black men, women, children, and their allies tested and affirmed this timeless idea that purposeful collective action can change our nation and the world. By saving historic African American places, we craft a more accurate American narrative and identity. We stimulate revitalization and foster interest in places that today seem to exist without history and meaning. These cultural assets anchor us and expand our sense of pride and agency. Historic preservation as urban regeneration is both a kind of cultural repair and revitalization strategy for the rebirth of historic Black neighborhoods and communities. In solidarity with African Americans, a multiracial coalition is marching in the footsteps of earlier generations whose vision for equality and human rights continues to inspire. When President Obama established this national monument, it was a beautiful example of how an empowered Black community of preservationists can build on their cultural legacy of activism to make the case that national preservation of their history is an act of racial justice and should be viewed as a civil right. Yeah. We applaud these sainted preservation leaders in Birmingham for their activism and achievement. We at the National Trust are proud to support organizations and ideas that are revolutionizing preservation practice, because historic sites that bring forward a diverse and inclusive national narrative are playing a crucial role in redefining our collective history and meaningfully expanding the preservation movement in equitable ways. This innovation in practice helps us all make amends and walk toward a new era of justice. In closing, I see a future where Black-owned businesses thrive in this neighborhood following in the footsteps of A.G. Gaston. where a new generation of black architects and contractors expand on the artistic legacies of pioneering black architects like Robert Taylor, Wallace Rayfield, and Max Bond. And we're anchoring historic black institutions and preservation organizations are financially resourced to steward their cultural assets and engage the public in Birmingham's rich, multi-layered history. I trust in the tenacity, capacity, and leadership of this industrial city and community to secure new public and private investment for the next phases of development and ensure these heritage places are forever stewarded and interpreted, just like Thomas Jefferson's Monticello and Theodore Roosevelt's Elkhorn Ranch. This investment and ongoing preservation work will ensure that Birmingham has a visible and vibrant black future. Together we can guarantee that all residents of this heritage city can see themselves and their history and their potential in the historic African American places that surround them. Congratulations, Birmingham. What you have accomplished is a beautiful moment for our nation and for this beloved city. Congratulations.